The human ship drifted silently through the endless stretch of space, glowing softly under the dim light of distant stars. On board, the small crew worked quietly, their focus divided between repairing the engines and monitoring the strange signals from the planet ahead. Among them was a small human girl, no older than 7, who clung to the rails of the ship's observation deck, staring at the swirling colors of the planet below. Unlike the adults, she didn't speak much. Her wide eyes absorbed everything: the twisting clouds, the sharp mountains, and the patches of glowing forest that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. There was a curiosity in her gaze that could not be tamed, a silent daring that had already made the adults nervous more than once. The planet was unlike any place humans had ever explored. It shimmered with strange, iridescent colors, and the whole air itself, though alien, seemed to hum softly through the ship's sensors. The crew had been warned. This world was home to the Cerebrax, the deadliest dragons in the galaxy. The aliens who monitored this sector spoke of them in whispers, describing creatures that could crush entire structures with their claws or melt metal with their fiery breath. For humans, the Cerebrax were not just dangerous, they were legends. Brought to life, monsters so feared that entire planets had fallen silent in their presence. And yet, for the girl, fear did not seem to exist. She only saw wonder. The ship shuddered suddenly. Alarms blared, echoing through the narrow corridors. The captain called out commands, his voice steady but tense. Something was wrong with the landing thrusters. The girl, sensing the tension, pressed herself against the wall, her small hands gripping the metal tightly. The adults hustled around, checking instruments, making calculations faster than anyone else could even comprehend. Outside the viewport, the planet grew closer, its jagged mountains and glowing forests spreading across the horizon like a living painting. And then the ship shook violently, throwing everyone against the walls. Sparks flew from the ceiling panels as systems failed one by one. The landing was rough. The ship skidded across the rocky surface, grinding against jagged stones, until finally it came to a shuddering stop. Smoke curled from the damaged engines, and the crew sighed in relief. They had survived, but only just. As the dust settled, the girl's curiosity overtook her fear. She peered out of the viewport, her tiny face pressed against the glass. The world outside was alive. She could see the glow of bioluminescent plants, the shadow of massive creatures moving in the distance, and the strange shimmer of water that reflected the alien sky in colors she had never seen before. The adults moved cautiously, checking the damage to the ship. They spoke in low tones, worried about detection. The Cerebrax dragons were not creatures one could negotiate with. Stories told of them descending without warning, attacking anything that moved and leaving nothing behind. Yet the girl remained calm. She edged closer to the door of the ship, drawn to the outside like a moth to light. She had always been fearless. In the face of danger, a fact that both amazed and terrified the adults around her. Finally, one of the crew members opened the hatch to inspect the terrain. The air outside was thick and humid, carrying a scent that was both strange and oddly sweet. The ground was soft underfoot, glowing faintly in patches where alien flora thrived. The adults stepped carefully, checking every movement, their weapons ready in case the Cerebrax dragons appeared. But the girl did not hesitate. She slipped past their line, her bare feet touching the warm, glowing soil. It felt alive beneath her, almost as if the planet itself was welcoming her presence. She looked up at the towering mountains, her small figure dwarfed by the sheer scale of the alien world. But she did not falter. The crew called after her, warning her to stay close. Their voices were tinged with panic now, not just because of the terrain, but because of what lurked in the shadows. The Cerebrax dragons had a way of appearing suddenly, their enormous wings stirring the air, and their eyes glowing like molten gold in the dark. But the girl seemed to sense nothing of this danger. Her attention was captured by a movement in the distance, a shadow that seemed to slide effortlessly between the trees. She tilted her head, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. Then came the first sound, a low, rumbling growl that rolled through the air like thunder. The adults froze. Their hearts sank. The creature was close. The growl was deep and resonant, a sound that shook the very ground they stood on. The girl, however, did not step back. She took a few careful steps forward, tilting her head as if listening to the rhythm of the growl. The shadows shifted, and a massive shape emerged. Its scales glinted in the alien light, sharp ridges running along its back. Its eyes, like twin suns, locked onto the humans, and its claws dug into the glowing soil. The adults raised their weapons, but the girl did not flinch. She extended her tiny hand, almost instinctively, toward the enormous creature. The Ceravrax dragon, the deadliest of them all, regarded her silently. The air between them felt charged, thick with tension that could snap at any moment. And yet, there was something different about this encounter, something that the adults could not understand. The dragon lowered its head slightly, nostrils flaring, examining the girl as if she were not a threat, but a mystery. The rumbling growl faded, replaced by a strange, almost melodic hum. The girl reached out, her small fingers brushing the rough texture of the dragon's nose. Time seemed to pause. The adults could not move, could not breathe. The creature, which had been a living legend of terror, stood still, its massive eyes studying the small human who dared to touch it. In that moment, the girl did not feel fear. She felt a connection. The dragon's breath was warm against her hand, a strange mix of heat and a scent like melted metal and wildflowers. Her heart raced, but not in panic and awe. She had touched something no one else could, something no one had dared approach. The dragon, in return, seemed to recognize her in a way that no human could. The adults slowly approached, weapons still raised, but hearts pounding with disbelief. They had been trained to handle dangerous creatures, but nothing had prepared them. For this, the small human had done what they could not make contact without fear. The dragon's massive wings twitched, and then it stepped back, giving her space, its golden eyes never leaving hers. The girl smiled softly, unaware of the history she was rewriting with a single simple gesture. The alien world around them seemed to hold its breath. Every leaf, every glowing plant, every shadowed corner of the forest waited for what would happen next. And for the first time, the crew realized that fear was not always the answer. Sometimes bravery came in small, unexpected forms, and the smallest human could do what the largest dragon might never anticipate. The moment lasted only seconds, but its impact would be felt forever. The girl had touched the nose of the deadliest dragon on the planet, and nothing would ever be the same. The adults, once filled with anxiety and doubt, now watched her with a mix of awe and terror. They realized that the universe had just shown them something extraordinary, a lesson in courage, curiosity, and the unexplainable bond between beings of entirely different worlds. And in that moment, the small human girl stood on the alien soil, her hand still extended toward the legendary creature, as the glowing forest whispered around them, telling a story that no human or alien had ever witnessed before. The dragon's eyes never left the girl as she slowly withdrew her hand, but she didn't step back. Instead, she stayed perfectly still, standing on the glowing soil, feeling the vibration of the dragon's immense body beneath her feet. Adults moved cautiously, whispering to one another, unable to fully believe what they had just witnessed. They had trained for every possible danger in alien environments, but nothing in their experience prepared them for a human child calmly touching the deadliest dragon known in the galaxy. The dragon shifted slightly, the ground trembling under. the weight of its claws. Its massive wings unfurled with a sound like tearing canvas, stretching high into the alien sky. The girl tilted her head, fascinated. She had never seen anything move so powerfully, yet so gracefully. The glowing patterns on its scales flickered like fire in the wind, creating colors she had never seen on Earth. Her small hand instinctively reached out again, wanting to understand the creature even more. The adults called out, their voices firm but tinged with worry. They tried to coax her back towards safety, reminding her that the Cerebrax dragons were predators, creatures whose instinct was to destroy anything that approached. But she didn't listen. She had always been different, drawn to the unknown in a way adults often could not understand. And this dragon, for reasons no one could explain, did not attack. It simply watched her, its enormous head tilting slightly, nostrils flaring as it took in her scent. The jungle around them stirred. Strange birds with translucent wings fluttered between the glowing trees, and small creatures scuttled across the ground, clearly intimidated by the dragon's presence. The girl's curiosity did not waver. She began to move slowly, taking careful steps toward the creature, her eyes never leaving its golden, glowing gaze. Every step was deliberate, like a dance, and every breath she took seemed to calm the air. Around her dot, one of the adults finally reached her side, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "We have to stay back," they whispered. "It's dangerous." The girl looked up at them with wide eyes. In that simple look, there was no fear, only understanding. It was as if she knew something the adults didn't, that this dragon, the most feared creature on the planet, had chosen to be still. She nodded slightly, almost reassuring them, but did not move away. The dragon lowered its head further, its nostrils brushing the girl's hair. The sensation was warm and surprisingly gentle. She could feel the heat of its breath and the power that radiated from its body, but instead of fear, there was awe. She reached out one more time, her fingers grazing the rough scales along its nose. The dragon exhaled slowly, a deep sound that rumbled through the ground, vibrating the soles of everyone's boots. The adults looked on in stunned silence. They had never imagined that any human could touch a Cerebrax dragon and survive, let alone be treated with something close to respect by the creature. For a long moment, no one moved. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The dragon's eyes softened slightly, as if recognizing the child in a way no human would. It lowered its massive head closer to the girl, its hot breath washing over her like a strange living wind. The girl's tiny hand stayed outstretched, touching the dragon gently, almost as if she were saying, "I am not afraid." The adults finally began to relax slightly, though they did not let go of their caution. They watched the dragon carefully, ready for any sudden movement, but nothing came. The dragon remained still, almost curious. The girl's fascination grew. She could feel the power in the dragon's body, the strength in its wings, and yet there was a strange gentleness in the way it regarded her. It was as if the creature understood that she meant no harm. A soft, vibrating hum began to emanate from the dragon's chest. The sound was low and almost musical, like an alien song that resonated in the air around them. The girl's eyes widened in wonder. She had never heard anything like it. She pressed her small hand a little harder against the dragon's nose, and the hum grew stronger, filling the forest with a strange rhythm. The adults exchanged looks, realizing that this encounter was something entirely unexpected. The dragon's massive wings twitched, and it shifted its weight slightly, but still it did not attack. Instead, it lowered its enormous body, resting, one claw on the glowing soil nearby. The girl crouched slightly, matching the dragon's gesture, her curiosity stronger than her caution. Every nerve in her body was alert, every sense focused on this living legend before her. She reached out again, touching the dragon's jaw gently, marveling at the intricate scales and the subtle warmth that radiated from beneath them. The adults took careful steps closer, sensing that the danger they had expected was no longer immediate. One of them whispered to another, saying, "I can't believe she's still alive." The other nodded slowly, equally astonished. The dragon, the deadliest predator in this part of the galaxy, had not only allowed a human child to approach it, had not even displayed aggression. Instead, there was something else, something no human had ever seen. Trust, or at least recognition. The girl's fascination continued. She began to explore the dragon's massive head slowly, running her fingers along the ridges of its scales and the sharp edges of its snout. The dragon remained perfectly still, lowering its head slightly as if to invite her closer. The adults could barely contain their amazement. They had come to this planet prepared for combat, for defense, for survival, but none of their plans accounted for this moment. They were witnessing history, a single human child forming a bond with a creature that had terrified entire civilizations. As the minutes passed, the dragon's hum continued, steady and soothing. The girl's small fingers traced the patterns along its snout, and for the first time, she felt a strange connection to the alien creature. She could sense its awareness, its intelligence, and even its caution, yet there was no fear directed toward her. It was as if the dragon had been waiting for this moment, waiting for someone small, brave, and unafraid to reach out and touch it. Suddenly, the dragon's tail flicked lightly, sweeping across the glowing soil. The girl didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned in slightly, examining the scales along its tail and marveling at the way the creature's body moved with both strength and elegance. The adults whispered urgently, but the girl paid no attention. She had discovered something no one else could see, the calm within the storm, the unexpected gentleness of a creature feared by all. The sun, or what passed for a sun on this alien planet, dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the glowing forest. The dragon slowly lifted its massive head, still studying the girl with golden eyes that seemed almost human in their focus. She stepped back slightly, her curiosity satisfied for the moment, but she did not move away completely. The connection had been made, and neither would forget it. The adults finally stepped forward, guiding her back gently toward the ship. They were still in awe, still filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. The dragon, now standing fully upright, watched them quietly, its hum fading into the alien wind. For the first time, the crew realized that this encounter had changed everything. The girl had faced the deadliest dragon known to the galaxy, and her bravery, curiosity, and calm had forged a moment that would be remembered for generations. As they returned to the ship, the girl glanced back one last time. The dragon remained where it was, its massive form blending with the shadows of the glowing forest. She smiled softly, a quiet understanding passing between them, a bond that no words could describe. The adults shook their heads in disbelief, knowing that the universe had just shown them something extraordinary. Sometimes the smallest humans could do what the largest dragons never imagined. And in that silent, glowing forest, a new story had begun, one that would forever change the way humans and the Cerarax dragons viewed each other. A story of bravery, wonder, and the unexplainable connection between two beings from completely different worlds. The girl could not stop thinking about the dragon. Even after she returned to the small safety of the ship, the image of its glowing eyes and immense body stayed in her mind. She pressed her small hands against the cold metal of the ship's wall, staring out at the alien forest below. The glow of the plants shimmered in the distance, and she could just make out the massive form of the dragon standing silently among the trees. It seemed almost as if it had not moved since they left, waiting for her to return. Her heart raced with a strange mix of fear, excitement, and curiosity. The crew moved around the ship, repairing what had been damaged during the rough landing. Sparks flew from broken panels, and the engines hissed as they attempted to reboot. The adults spoke quietly about what had just happened. Every word carried disbelief. "No human should have been that close," one of them whispered. "It's impossible that it didn't attack." But the girl barely listened. She could hear their words, but her mind was already back in the forest, back at the dragon's side. Hours passed. The alien sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the glowing landscape. The adults began discussing whether to stay the night on the planet or attempt a risky takeoff. Supplies were limited, and the planet's atmosphere was not safe for long-term exposure. Still, the girl could not bring herself to move away from the viewport. She pressed her tiny face against the glass, searching for the dragon. She wanted to know why it had not attacked, why it had allowed her to approach. She wanted to feel that connection again, even if only for a moment. Outside, the dragon shifted. Its massive wings stretched once more, but instead of taking flight, it moved gracefully through the forest, gliding between trees with astonishing agility. Its golden eyes scanned the surroundings, but they seemed to pause when they found her, the small human child who had dared to touch its nose. She held her breath. The dragon's attention felt almost like a recognition, a silent understanding. That left her both thrilled and terrified. The girl did not speak. She did not need to. Somehow, she knew that the dragon could sense her presence. She could feel the vibrations of its movements through the soil, a low hum that seemed to echo through the ship itself. The adults tried to distract her, asking questions and pointing out repairs, but she barely heard them. Her mind was on the creature below, on the strange bond that had formed in the forest. Night fell. The glowing plants lit the jungle with an eerie beauty, casting soft, colorful light across the landscape. The dragon rested in a small clearing, its wings folded neatly against its massive back. The girl watched from the ship, her imagination racing. She felt drawn to it, as if some invisible thread connected her to the creature. The adults prepared to sleep, exhausted from the day's events, but the girl could not. She stayed awake, her eyes trained on the dragon, and her thoughts filled with wonder. Early the next morning, the girl could not resist. She slipped quietly from her small sleeping area, careful not to wake the adults. The hatch opened with a hiss, and she stepped out onto the alien soil, feeling the warmth of the glowing plants beneath her feet. The forest was alive with sounds, chirping creatures, rustling leaves, and the soft hum of the dragon somewhere nearby. She moved slowly, deliberately, each step guided by her curiosity rather than fear. The dragon noticed her immediately. Its massive head lifted, and its golden eyes locked onto her small form. The girl froze, staring back, her tiny chest rising and falling with excitement and tension. The dragon tilted its head slightly, as if acknowledging her courage. Then it moved closer, its movements slow and measured. The girl did not flinch. She had come this far, and now she wanted to understand more. She reached out her hand again, brushing it against the dragon's snout. The creature exhaled softly, a warm breath washing over her hand. Its hum filled the clearing, resonating through the soil, through her bones, through everything around her. She could feel the dragon's strength, its intelligence, and a kind of calm that contradicted everything the adults had warned her about. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. She and the dragon were alone, connected in a way no human had ever experienced. The dragon lowered its massive head further, pressing it lightly against the girl's tiny shoulder. She gasped softly, feeling the vibration of its body, the warmth of its scales, and a gentle curiosity that seemed almost human. The adults watched from a distance, frozen with awe. They had trained for danger, for combat, for survival, But this was beyond anything they had imagined. The girl had done what no one else could. She had bridged the gap between human and dragon, between fear and understanding. Hours passed in silence. The girl explored the dragon's head and shoulders, her small fingers tracing the patterns of its scales. She marveled at the creature's massive form, its intelligence, and the calmness it radiated. The dragon did not move aggressively, did not roar, did not show hostility. Instead, it seemed to respond to her touch, to her presence, in a way that was gentle, almost affectionate. The adults whispered among themselves, realizing that the child had uncovered something extraordinary. By midday, the crew gathered enough courage to step closer. They watched as the dragon slowly shifted its gaze, toward them, then back to the girl. It was clear it recognized her, that it understood the bond between them. The girl looked up at the adults, her eyes shining with excitement. "It's not dangerous," she said softly. It's just curious." The adults exchanged glances, hesitant to believe, but they could not deny what they saw. The dragon's tail flicked lightly, brushing against the glowing soil. The girl laughed softly, a sound that seemed to echo through the forest. The dragon tilted its massive head in response, almost as if it were amused. The adults felt a mix of relief and amazement. This was not just survival. This was connection, understanding, a moment that defied everything they had been taught about fear and danger. As the day went on, the girl remained by the dragon's side. She discovered that it responded to gentle touches, to soft words, and even to her small movements. The dragon did not roar, it did not attack, and it did not flee. It simply existed with her, a massive living legend, and yet somehow completely calm in her presence. The adults observed quietly, understanding that what they were witnessing was extraordinary. As night approached again, the dragon lay down in the clearing, its massive wings folding neatly against its back. The girl sat beside it, leaning gently. Against its warm scales, she felt safe, despite the stories, despite the warnings, despite the fact that this was the deadliest creature in the galaxy. The dragon hummed softly, a sound that filled the air and resonated in her chest. It was a sound of calm, of recognition, of something almost magical. The adults returned to the ship slowly, leaving the girl with the dragon. They watched from a distance, filled with awe and respect, realizing that this encounter would change everything they thought they knew about the planet, about dragons, and about the courage of humans. The girl, small and fearless, had formed a bond with the most feared creature in the galaxy. And in doing so, she had proven something the adults could never have imagined, that bravery, curiosity, and kindness could create connections even in the most impossible circumstances. As she sat there, the glow of the alien forest bathing them both in soft light, the girl felt a strange sense of wonder. She knew this was only the beginning. The dragon's eyes watched her constantly, and she knew that they understood each other in a way words could never explain. The universe had just opened a door, and she had stepped through it with nothing but curiosity and courage. And in the silent night, under the glowing plants of the alien forest, a story was unfolding, a story of trust, understanding, and the unbreakable connection between a small human and a creature of unimaginable power. The next morning, the girl woke before the adults. Sunlight, strange and golden, filtered through the alien sky, illuminating the glowing forest with colors she had never seen before. She could hear the soft hum of the dragon nearby, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the ground and through her chest. Without thinking, she slipped out of the ship again, careful not to wake the adults. Her small feet touched the glowing soil, warm and soft beneath her. She looked around and saw the dragon waiting. Its massive head was low, golden eyes fixed on her. She felt a thrill of excitement, and a small shiver of anticipation. Today, she decided she would follow the dragon deeper into the forest. She wanted to see where it lived, what it ate, and how it moved through the glowing trees. The dragon turned slightly, almost as if it understood her intention, and began to move slowly. Its steps were careful, deliberate, and yet they caused the ground to tremble slightly under its weight. She followed, careful not to fall, her eyes wide with wonder at everything around her. Strange plants bent toward her as if they recognized her presence, and small glowing insects hovered in the air, lighting up the path in front of them. The adults were awake by the time she had walked a little distance, and they watched from the ship, their hearts pounded with worry. They had survived the landing, and the girl had survived the first encounter with the dragon, but following it alone into the forest? They were terrified. They tried to call her back, their voices tense, but she did not stop. Somehow she had learned to trust the dragon. Somehow she knew that it would not harm her. And somehow she had discovered courage that the adults could not fully comprehend. The dragon led her to a small clearing. It was enormous, surrounded by glowing plants that arched over like a natural dome, and soft, luminous moss covered the ground. The dragon lay down carefully, folding its massive wings against its back. It lowered its head close to the girl, and she reached out to touch it again. She could feel the warmth of its scales, the vibration of its chest as it hummed softly, and a strange sense of calm washed over her. She realized that she felt safer with the dragon than she ever had on the ship, even with the adults around. The girl moved around the dragon, touching its sides, exploring the patterns on its scales. She noticed subtle differences in the textures, the way the scales curved around its limbs, the way the light reflected off certain ridges. Every detail fascinated her. The dragon hummed and shifted slightly, as if responding to her touch. She laughed softly, and the dragon's hum seemed to change in response, almost like a song. The adults watched from the edge of the clearing, unable to hide their amazement. They could not understand how this bond had formed, but they could not deny it either. The dragon rose slowly, stretching its massive wings. The girl held on to a small ridge near its neck as it moved through the clearing. She felt the power of the creature beneath her hands, the strength and grace that defied belief. They walked together, the dragon leading and she following. She noticed how it avoided certain plants and trees, as if it knew the forest intimately. Strange creatures peeked from the foliage, clearly intimidated by the dragon's presence, but the girl paid them no mind. Her attention was entirely on the dragon, her trust growing with each passing step. At one point, the dragon stopped near a glowing pool of water, its eyes fixed on the girl, and she understood that it wanted her to see something. She knelt at the edge of the pool, watching as the dragon dipped its massive snout into the water and drank carefully. The surface rippled, reflecting the glow of the surrounding plants and the golden sunlight above. She reached out and touched the water, feeling it cool and smooth against her skin. The dragon hummed softly, and she laughed again, feeling a strange sense of joy and connection. The adults finally stepped into the clearing cautiously, keeping a safe distance. They watched as the girl explored, as she interacted with the dragon, and as the massive creature moved with surprising gentleness. One of them whispered to another, "I've never seen anything like this. It's as if the dragon trusts her." The other nodded, unable to find words. They realized that the child had done something extraordinary. She had broken through fear and legend to create a bridge between species. The girl did not notice the adults yet. She was too focused on the dragon, reaching out to touch its massive wings, feeling the texture and the warmth. The dragon lifted one wing slightly, allowing her to run her fingers along its length. She giggled at the sensation, the immense size. of the wing dwarfing her small hands. The dragon hummed in response, a deep, melodic sound that seemed to echo through the entire clearing. Suddenly, a movement in the forest caught their attention. A smaller dragon, younger and more agile, appeared from the shadows. The girl froze for a moment, but the dragon beside her did not react aggressively. Instead, it lowered its massive head, as if signaling the smaller one to keep its distance. The girl watched carefully, realizing that this was the dragon's way of protecting her. It was not just powerful. It was intelligent, aware, and capable of understanding relationships. That the girl's curiosity grew. She moved closer to the smaller dragon cautiously, extending her hand. The creature hesitated, its golden eyes flicking toward the larger dragon for guidance. Slowly, it stepped forward, and she touched its snout gently. It shivered slightly, but did not pull away. The girl laughed softly, and the larger dragon hummed, almost approvingly. She realized that her presence and her calmness had an effect, not just on one dragon, but on the creatures of the entire forest. The adults moved closer, careful not to disturb the dragons. They could see the connection clearly now, the bond between the girl and the massive creature beside her. They whispered among themselves, realizing that this encounter was more than just survival. It was discovery. They had expected danger, and instead they were witnessing trust, intelligence, and a new understanding of life on this alien planet. The girl and the dragons explored the clearing together for hours. She ran her hands along their scales, watched their eyes, listened to their hums, and began to understand that these creatures were not simply monsters. They were beings with awareness, with feelings, and with the capacity to respond to kindness and bravery. She felt a sense of wonder and responsibility at the same time. She knew she had been given a rare gift, the chance to communicate without words, to touch without harm, and to understand without fear. As night approached again, dragons lay down in the clearing, their massive forms creating shadows across the glowing plants. The girl sat between them, feeling the warmth radiating from their bodies. She could hear the hums filling the forest, resonating through her chest, through the ground, through the entire clearing. The adults, standing at a safe distance, watched. Quietly, they knew that what they had witnessed that day would change everything. It was not just the bravery of a small human child. It was proof that understanding and trust could exist in the most dangerous of places. The girl closed her eyes. For a moment, leaning against the larger dragon's side, she felt safe, calm, and full of wonder. She had discovered something no human had ever experienced before, a connection so pure that fear had no place in it. The dragons, once feared as the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, were now her companions, her protectors, and her friends. She understood, without words, that this bond was something extraordinary, something that could change the way humans saw the universe. The adults eventually guided her back to the ship, but the dragons did not leave. The larger dragon stood in the clearing, golden eyes glowing softly, watching her retreat. The smaller dragon followed slowly, its movements cautious but calm. The girl waved goodbye, and she felt certain that they understood her. She felt promise between them, a silent understanding that this was not the end, but the beginning of something remarkable. As the ship's hatch closed behind them, the girl looked out once more at the glowing forest. She knew that the dragons were waiting, that the bond had been formed, and that the universe had just revealed a secret it had never shared with humans before. She smiled, feeling the thrill of adventure, the joy of discovery, and the warmth of friendship in the most unexpected form. And in that glowing alien forest, a story was being written that would echo far beyond the forest, beyond the planet, and into the hearts of humans and dragons alike, a story of trust, bravery, and the extraordinary bond between a small human child and the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. The next day began with a strange quiet in the alien forest. The glowing plants shimmered softly, casting gentle light across the mossy ground, and the air hummed faintly with the pulse of life that surrounded them. The girl felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as she stepped outside the ship again. Today, she would explore further, deeper into the forest where no human had ever gone before. The dragon awaited her, its massive body partially hidden in the shadows of the towering trees. Its golden eyes fixed on her as soon as she appeared, and she felt that familiar thrill, that strange comfort that had grown between them over the past days. As she approached, the dragon moved to the edge of the clearing, lowering its head slightly, inviting her to follow. She did not hesitate. Each step into the glowing forest was both beautiful and frightening. Strange sounds echoed from the distant chirps, rustles, and deep vibrations that shook the ground lightly. She walked carefully, her small hands brushing against the luminescent plants, feeling the soft textures beneath her fingers. She could hear the hum of the dragon's body, steady and calming, and it seemed to steady her own heartbeat as well. The adults followed at a distance, watching with awe and caution. They had begun to realize that the girl's bond with the dragon was extraordinary, but they also knew the dangers of this alien world. The forest was alive with creatures that humans could not predict, and even though the dragons had shown calm, the girl's safety could never be guaranteed. Yet they could not stop themselves from marveling at the scene. The courage, the calm, and the natural connection the girl had with the creature defied everything they had been taught about survival and danger. Deeper in the forest, the trees grew taller, their glowing branches stretching high into the sky. The dragon led her carefully along a winding path, its massive claws treading lightly over the mossy ground. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the clearing. The girl froze, looking up. From the shadows, a smaller, unfamiliar dragon emerged. Its scales glimmered with a deep blue light, and its eyes glowed with curiosity, but also caution. The girl instinctively stepped closer to the larger dragon. The large dragon, her companion, shifted slightly, its body positioning itself between the girl and the new dragon. It lowered its head, nostrils flaring as if communicating something important to the newcomer. The girl watched in awe as the two dragons interacted silently, their movements deliberate and careful, almost like a language she could not yet understand. Her fear faded, replaced by fascination. She realized that she was witnessing a moment that no human had ever seen before. Two dragons communicating, and one of them trusting her completely. Encouraged by the calm of her companion, the girl cautiously stepped toward the smaller dragon. She extended her tiny hand slowly, making sure her movements were gentle and deliberate. The small dragon hesitated, flicking its tail nervously, but it did not retreat. It sniffed the air around her, its glowing eyes fixed on her hand. She held her breath, waiting, hoping that the gentle touch she had learned with the first dragon would work again. Slowly, her fingers brushed the smaller dragon's snout. It shivered at the touch, a small vibration that made her heart race with excitement. The large dragon hummed softly, a deep sound that resonated through the forest. The girl laughed quietly, thrilled by the sensation of trust spreading from one creature to another. She could feel the intelligence of both dragons, their awareness, and even their care for her. The smaller dragon relaxed slightly, leaning into her touch, and the girl's smile widened. She felt a warmth she had never known, a feeling that she was part of something much larger than herself, a secret connection between humans and dragons that the universe had kept hidden for centuries. As they continued, the girl noticed a faint glimmer in the distance, a river of molten-like water flowing through the glowing forest. It shimmered with golden light, reflecting the alien sky and the glowing plants around it. The dragons moved toward it gracefully, and she followed, amazed at the way the large dragon seemed to know every step, every obstacle. They reached the riverbank, and she knelt to touch the water. It was warmer than she expected, smooth and flowing over her fingers in a strange, almost magical way. The dragons hummed softly beside her, and she felt as though the forest itself was alive, aware of their presence, and approving of the bond that had formed. Suddenly, the smaller dragon made a sharp movement, hissing softly. The girl looked up, startled. From the shadows of the trees, a group of smaller, unfamiliar creatures emerged. They were alien predators, quick and agile, and their eyes glowed with hunger. The girl froze. The large dragon's massive body tensed, nostrils flaring as it prepared to protect her. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and the girl's heart pounded in her chest. She realized the true danger of this world, the reason the adults had warned her, and yet she also knew she could trust her companions. The large dragon stepped forward, spreading its wings slightly, a warning to the predators. The girl instinctively crouched, keeping her hands close to the dragon's body. The smaller dragon beside her hissed and stomped its claws, standing ready. The predators circled cautiously, clearly aware that this was not a simple prey situation. The girl's heart raced, but she did not panic. She had learned over the past days that calmness, courage, and trust could influence even the deadliest creatures. The large dragon released a low, resonant hum, a sound that vibrated through the ground and the air. The predators froze, and one by one, they retreated into the shadows, intimidated by the display of power and communication. The girl exhaled slowly, her tiny chest rising and falling as the tension lifted. She looked up at the dragons, grateful and amazed. They had protected her without her needing to do anything but remain calm and trust them. She realized that she was not just a visitor in this forest. She had become part of it in a way that few humans ever could. Hours passed as they explored the glowing forest together. The girl learned the movements of the dragons, the way they communicated without words, and the subtle ways the forest responded to their presence. She began to understand that this world, dangerous as it was, had rules and rhythms that could be learned, respected, and even shared. She touched the glowing plants, ran her fingers over the shimmering moss, and felt the hum of the dragons beneath her hands. Every step, every sound, every movement felt alive, magical, and alive with connection. As night approached, the girl and the dragons found a clearing surrounded by tall, glowing trees. The river of molten-like water reflected the moonlight, casting a soft golden glow across the clearing. The dragons lay down beside her, their bodies radiating warmth and a deep hum of calm. She leaned against the larger dragon, feeling the strength and trust flowing between them. She knew that tomorrow she would continue exploring, that the forest still held mysteries she had yet to discover, and that the bond she had formed with these creatures would guide her through whatever challenges lay ahead. The adults watched from the ship again, quietly in awe. They had witnessed danger, discovery, and now trust. The girl had faced the unknown with courage, curiosity, and respect, and in doing so, had opened a door to something extraordinary. The dragons, once feared as the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, had shown patience, intelligence, and care in ways no human had imagined possible. And as the forest hummed softly, glowing under the alien sky, the girl closed her eyes, knowing that she had discovered something that would change not just her understanding, but the understanding of humans everywhere, a bond that defied fear, a connection that transcended worlds, and a story that had only just begun. The morning sun rose over the glowing forest, painting the alien landscape in soft golden light. The girl woke before the adults, as usual, and felt a familiar thrill in her chest. Today felt different, important somehow. She could sense it in The hum of the dragons, in the whispers of the glowing plants, and in the warmth of the air around her. Something was about to happen, something she could not yet name, and yet she felt ready. She slipped quietly from the ship, careful not to wake the adults, and stepped onto the glowing soil. The dragons were already waiting, massive forms blending with the light and shadows of the forest. Their golden eyes glimmered, and she felt the hum of their presence vibrating through the ground, through her feet, and into her very bones. The girl approached them calmly, reaching out to touch the large dragon's nose, as she had done so many times before. Its hum deepened, almost singing in response to her touch. She smiled, feeling a bond that went beyond words. The smaller dragon stood nearby, eyes bright and curious, watching her every movement. She knew today they would go further than they ever had before, into a part of the forest that even the adults had not dared to explore. The dragon moved first, stepping carefully through the glowing moss, its massive claws leaving impressions that seemed to glow briefly in the light. The girl followed, hands hovering near its scales, learning its rhythm and trusting its every step. The smaller dragon followed behind, hissing softly at the strange shapes and glowing creatures that emerged from the shadows. The girl laughed quietly at their reactions, feeling the joy of discovery and the thrill of being part of something much larger than herself. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew warmer, thick with the scent of alien flowers and minerals. The sounds of the forest grew louder, distant chirps, rustling leaves, and a deep vibrating hum that seemed to come from the ground itself. The dragons led her carefully through narrow pathways, past towering glowing trees, and over streams that shimmered with golden light. Every step felt magical, as if the forest recognized her presence and welcomed her into its heart. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the girl froze. In the distance, she could see a massive shape moving, a dragon larger than any she had seen before, with scales black as night and eyes that glowed like molten gold. The smaller dragon hissed and stepped back, but the large dragon beside her did not retreat. Instead, it lowered its head, positioning itself between her and the newcomer. The girl's heart raced. She had read stories of such creatures' legends, of dragons so powerful that entire forests had been leveled by their anger. But as she looked at the massive newcomer, she felt no fear, only curiosity and a strange calm. The black dragon approached slowly, wings partially spread, nostrils flaring. The girl extended her small hand, holding it out in the way she had learned with the other dragons. The large dragon beside her hummed deeply, a protective and reassuring sound that vibrated through her chest. She could feel the tension in the air, the weight of power around her, but she remained steady. The black dragon stopped, its massive eyes studying her carefully. Slowly, it lowered its head, letting her touch its snout. A shiver of awe ran through her as she felt the heat and strength of the creature beneath her fingers. The smaller dragon stepped forward cautiously, sniffing the newcomer, and the large dragon beside her hummed again, approvingly. The black dragon exhaled slowly, a warm rush of air washing over her face. She realized that, somehow, the dragons were recognizing her as part of their world. Her calmness, her courage, her curiosity had created trust, and now she was witnessing a moment no human had ever experienced before. 3 dragons, including the deadliest she had ever seen, standing together with a single human child at their center. The adults had followed from a distance, hearts pounding in amazement. They watched quietly, understanding that they were witnessing history. No human had ever been allowed to approach the deadliest dragons in the galaxy, let alone touch them and be accepted. The girl's presence, her bravery and gentle nature, had rewritten everything they knew about fear, trust, and the bond between species. The black dragon slowly moved closer to the clearing, its massive wings brushing the tops of glowing trees. The girl walked beside it, feeling its strength beneath her hands and marveling at the way it moved. She could hear its low hum, and it seemed to harmonize with the hum of the large dragon beside her. The smaller dragon followed, their movements synchronized in a way that was almost like a dance. She realized that she had become part of this rhythm, part of a world she had only glimpsed before, a world that had now opened itself fully to her. As the day passed, the dragons led her to a hidden valley deep within the forest. The valley was unlike anything she had ever seen. Glowing plants of every shape and color filled the space, and a river of shimmering water ran through it, reflecting the alien sky above. Strange creatures moved quietly through the trees, and the air hummed with life. The girl knelt by the river, touching the water gently. It was warm and smooth against her hands, and she could feel the energy of the valley flowing into her, filling her with awe and wonder. The dragons settled around her, forming a protective circle. She leaned against the larger dragon, feeling its warmth and steady hum. The black dragon lay down nearby, eyes soft and attentive, while the smaller dragon curled up beside her feet. For the first time, she felt completely at peace in this alien world, surrounded by creatures she had once feared and now trusted completely. She realized that this moment was not just about survival or discovery. It was about connection, about understanding that courage, curiosity, and kindness could create bonds where fear had once ruled. The adults finally approached the valley, keeping a respectful distance. They watched as the girl interacted with the dragons, as they moved and communicated in subtle ways, and as the forest seemed to respond to their presence. One of the adults whispered, "I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. She's changed everything." The other nodded, understanding fully. The girl had not only survived, she had bridged a gap between species, created a bond that could never be broken, and shown them all that fear could be replaced with understanding. As night fell, the valley glowed softly under the alien sky. The dragons hummed together, a deep, resonant sound that filled the air, vibrating through the ground and through the girl's chest. She leaned against the large dragon's side, feeling the warmth, the strength, and the trust that had formed over the past days. The black dragon rested its massive head near her, golden eyes watching carefully, while the smaller dragon curled up beside her feet. She closed her eyes, feeling completely safe, completely understood, and completely part of this incredible alien world. The girl knew that she had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would change everything humans thought they knew about dragons, trust, and courage. The deadliest creatures in the galaxy, feared for centuries, had accepted her, and through her bravery and kindness, she had opened a door to understanding and connection that no human had ever reached. She realized that this was not just her adventure, it was the beginning of a new story, one that would inspire humans and dragons alike for generations. As she lay there, surrounded by the hum of the dragons and the soft glow of the valley, she understood something profound, that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face the unknown with curiosity and respect. She had done that, and the universe had responded. The dragons had trusted her, the forest had accepted her, and she had discovered a world where humans and dragons could coexist in harmony. And so, as the glowing night deepened and the alien stars twinkled above, the girl sat between the dragons, a small figure in a vast, magical world. She smiled softly, knowing that this was only the beginning, that countless adventures still awaited, and that she had learned the greatest lesson of all, that trust, courage, and kindness could change even the deadliest of worlds.